Hello and welcome to One Cool Thing, PCMag's daily show where we show you one cool thing which we are testing out here in the PCMag labs. I am Sasha Sieg and this is Will Greenwald. If you are watching us live on Facebook, we have Social Pete here to take your comments and questions, and we would like comments and questions. We love to engage in a dialogue with our audience.
Or a combo.
If you are watching us later on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Consider coming over to Facebook at 10 a.m. Eastern on the PCMag Facebook page for One Cool Thing. Today's One Cool Thing is a cool thing for your face. It is the Oculus Go, the standalone VR headset from the makers of Oculus. What is it? What does it do? Is it good? Let's talk about it.
It's basically a Samsung Gear VR with a Galaxy S7 plugged in. It's a $200 standalone headset. So no wires, you just put it on your head. You don't need to plug a phone into it or anything. You just put it on and use this little controller and play VR stuff.
So the controller comes with it?
Yep, the controller, it is very similar to the Gear VR controller. It has a trigger, a touchpad, 2 buttons, like Oculus controls.
So I would like to point out that this is $200
total.
And
for the 32 gig version, $250 for the 64 gig, and this doesn't have a card slot, so like if you want to actually put movies on it, then you're gonna want to get the bigger one.
So what I was gonna say is it's $200, and the Gear VR controller alone is usually around $100. So
I thought it was bundled with the Gear VR itself at this point.
Oh, is it now?
I
Is
think
it
it
now?
is, yeah.
Okay. So, but yeah, it's $200. The Gear VR is what? How much does the Gear VR cost?
I believe that's $130, and that is just the shell and the controller. There's
right.
no
that doesn't even
guts
come
in
with
it.
the phone. Yeah. So it is. So this is a really good value. Let's talk about the VR experience. You put this on. What happens? What kind of software can you run?
Well, this is a 3DoF, 3 degrees of freedom headset, which means it detects how you're moving, but not where you are. The tethered headsets we've tested, the Rift, the HTC Vive, the PlayStation View, the Windows Mixed Reality ones, they are 6DoF, 6 degrees of freedom, so there are external sensors or outward-facing cameras that actually tell if you're moving physically, so like moving left or right or forward and backward. This, it's purely directional, so it's much more limited, but that's also a limitation that the Daydream View has with a compatible phone, the Gear VR has with a compatible phone, not the Mirage Solo with Daydream, which is the other standalone VR headset we've tested before. Actually, the review just went up at the beginning of the week, last week. You can check that out on PCMag.com too. It's twice as expensive as this and is basically a Daydream View, just with outward-facing cameras. So this, just directional, you're just turning, you can't move. Same thing for the controller, just turning, it isn't actually tracking the position like it is with the tethered headsets, the Oculus Touch controllers, which we love because it just feels very natural. Definitely a much more limited experience, but the whole point of that is it's cheap, accessible, and standalone. So you can just play Netflix, Hulu, you can use a web browser, watch YouTube. You can play some games. There's Settlers of Catan VR. There's Keep Talking, Nobody Explodes.
We'll get to that list of games in a minute. How high resolution is the screen? Does it look grainy? Is text readable?
Text is very readable. It's 1280 by 1440, which is pretty much standard for these headsets at this point. It's the same resolution as the Gear VR with a current gen phone, as the Mirage Solo, Daydream View with a Quad HD phone. Basically just has a Quad HD 5.5-inch screen in there. It is LCD though, and we really like OLED, which is what the Rift uses, the Vive uses, the Gear VR uses, because the Samsung flagship phones have OLED. They have a lot deeper black, so if you're looking at a night sky, it's not going to be quite as inky dark on this.
How's the latency? Do you have any lag or tearing when you're moving your head really quickly?
The refresh rate is just between 60 and 72 hertz, depending on the software, but I didn't actually notice much in the way of latency. I didn't have any motion sickness issues or particular jerkiness. It just was fairly smooth.
And now you can wear this over glasses?
Yeah, it actually comes with a rubber insert you put in under the foam right here that puts the foam a bit further away from the lenses so your glasses don't press against it. And I've been using this with glasses and it's actually fairly comfortable.
How long can you wear it comfortably without getting too sweaty or ill?
I'd actually say around an hour or two, which is kind of in line with the battery life on this. So, you're going to get at most 3 hours. Realistically, you're going to get 2. And a nice thing about the face mask here, this foam, you can see it's sort of covered in a breathable fabric. It is removable, and it can get sweaty, but it's also a lot it breathes a lot more than just the raw foam we've seen on some other headsets.
If it's removable, is it washable?
I believe it can be, but dry thoroughly and be careful when removing the lens caps first.
Right.
We got a question. Do we have a question? No. Okay.
So how does this handle audio?
That's actually kind of interesting. There are directional speakers built in that project sound into your ears, so it's like you're hearing headphones, but nothing is actually physically on your ears. The sound bleed is a lot less than you might think. Depending on what you're listening to, you might hear a cross between someone next to you might hear a cross between a low buzzing to sort of that sound you get when you're on the subway and someone's listening to on your headphones a little bit too loud. But it's not that much sound bleed. And there is also an optional 3.5-inch jack if you want to make sure whatever you're listening to is private.
Now, I see an interesting logo on the side here.
Yep.
What does this refer to?
I'm actually not sure. I forget what that logo means.
Is it made by Xiaomi?
It actually might be.
That is the Xiaomi logo.
I guess it's made by Xiaomi.
Okay.
And hey, great, another Chinese-made mobile device that hasn't gotten through the embargo.
So let's take a look at some of the software that's available for the Oculus Go, and talk about how that software compares to the other VR mobile platforms and to the VR PC platforms. So game-wise, it looks like there's, it looks like there's probably on the order of several dozen games here. Would you say that?
A couple dozen to a couple hundred. I mean, these are,
none
of them are real big bangers. A favorite one is Keep Talking Nobody Explodes. It's a very fun party game where you have sort of friends with a big bundle of papers of just this is what these symbols mean, and you need to sort of describe what you're looking at in VR to defuse a bomb. It's actually really cool. It's fascinating.
Okay.
And there are a couple other ones. There's virtual poker. There's some roller coastery stuff. There is Dread Halls, which is kind of a neat little horror dungeon crawler.
Now, one thing I'm not seeing is, I'm not seeing a lot of big name game brands on this list.
Well, again, this is 3DoF for both the headset and the controller, so things are kind of limited, which means some of my absolute favorite VR experiences, which is Super Hot VR, which is one of the few closest things to a killer app for VR, just because it's like you're playing John Wick. But because that needs 2 controllers, it needs 6DoF for the headset and the controllers, it is way more advanced than this can handle. You need a HTC Vive or Oculus Rift. But for the price, you're still going to get some experiences. Minecraft isn't on it yet, even though Minecraft is on the Gear VR store, and they're very similar, but there are some interesting things. I actually played some recent promotional VR experiences. Lara Croft, Tomb Raider VR, Lara's Escape, which is just sort of running and quick puzzle solving to avoid things, and Rampage VR, where I'm just sort of swinging to punch at buildings, and they're simple, kind of fun. The whole point of this is it is a cheap way to just try out VR. This will give you a taste for $200 without any investment in anything else.
So how does the game availability compare to Daydream?
Daydream has a little bit more. We did see on Mirage Solo that Res Infinite is actually on Daydream, at least for the Mirage, which Res Infinite is another fantastic VR experience, but it's much more fantastic on the PlayStation VR because of that OLED screen. You get the inky blacks, you get the much better motion control. It really does feel like a step back on the Mirage. So, and remember, the Mirage, $400. This is $200.
Now, if you have this and a Gear VR compatible phone,
there's no reason.
But what I was going to say is, if you are switching from one to the other, do you have to rebuy the software titles?
It's all the Oculus store, so it should be it should carry over. And honestly, if you have a S8, S9, Note 8, it's going to be a better experience than this because 1, OLED screen, 2, much faster processor. This is again Snapdragon 821 VR. That's a pretty big step back. But we have a question.
How long do you think it's going to take before a standalone VR headset has, say, the capabilities of the wired headsets today?
It's going to start being really expensive. We saw kind of a concept of that when we got the HoloLens in, which is AR, not VR. Microsoft calls it mixed reality, but it's augmented reality. And that's virtual reality for the mixed reality thing for the actual headsets. But you need to put a lot of power into this. And as we've seen from the Vive, the Go, or from the Vive, the Rift, the PlayStation VR, you need something strong tethered to it, like a PS4 or a gaming PC.
I actually spent some time yesterday with some startups who might have a solution to this problem.
Let's hear it.
And that solution is 5G. that
Sure.
once you have 5G networks, so we are talking probably 2021, 2022, once you have 5G networks, the latencies are sub 10 milliseconds.
Yeah.
And you have these very large up and down rates. And so as a result, you no longer have to render the VR on the headset. The headset can just be an endpoint, and you can be rendering on an edge computer in the cloud. And so,
And is there some reason we couldn't do that with, say, Wi-Fi and local, like 802.11n or AC? Is that still too high latency?
I believe it is. I believe Wi-Fi is still too high latency for the for the motion to photon issue.
Because I've seen that with just streaming games on things like PlayStation Now, GameFly streaming. Even with our really fast Wi-Fi, it's better if you have it plugged in.
Well,
and that's just like 2D.
That's why the HTC Vive wireless adapter uses 802.11ad.
Yep.
The 60 gigahertz WiGig, which is
that'll actually be a good sort of interim.
bigger bandwidth and lower latency.
That might be a good interim like step for the standalone headset. The HTC Vive or Vive Pro with the adapter, you still need like a good gaming computer nearby, but then it will be standalone. We just haven't actually tested it ourselves yet. We will as soon as it gets in the lab.
But so my answer for your question, by the way, is and you can hold me to this. Call me then. Christmas 2021. That is my answer for you.
That seems absurdly optimistic, but that's me.
What's the next question?
Is it possible to install applications like CineVR?
This does support sideloading APKs using an ADB driver, but I've tried sideloading stuff to like a Fire TV stick or like a Android TV box, and that is like way fewer variables, and I still see apps just break because they're not expecting to use that hardware.
Yeah,
sideloading anything onto VR seems like a huge crapshoot. I would not expect any software that is not designed for it to run. If you can get it to run, that's great, but you're gonna have to do a lot of the footwork yourself.
Yeah, I think the concern there is that you can sideload the app, but the app has to be designed to display on this device. So if your third-party app, if the developer goes out and creates an Oculus Go compatible version that you have to sideload, well, that's one thing. But sideloading just apps for other devices probably will not render correctly.
I imagine it's the sort of possible where you need to modify the app yourself to get it to remotely come close to running.
Any more questions out there? Okay, so now we have not rated this one yet, right?
We are finishing the review. It should actually be up tomorrow for, there'll be a score, there'll be a complete overhaul of what I wrote up on there. I'm spending a lot of time with this, so a much closer look, and it's not just what I did at GDC 2 months ago. And you can check the review of this out tomorrow on PC Mag.
Okay,
and in
great.
the meantime, you can check out our review of the Lenovo Mirage Solo. That's the last standalone one, and I've reviewed pretty much every other major VR headset, so the HTC Vive Pro. Like, we have a whole VR headset roundup if you want to check out the state of the market.
Okay.
And we're adding to it as it is.
Okay, great. So that is the Oculus Go. We will have a full review up soon. Check out PCMag.com for our full review. Thank you all for watching. This has been One Cool Thing. If you are watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're watching us on Facebook, please return at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I will not be here, but other people will, for one more cool thing for you.